In this demonstration, we are going to build a dialog on the new dialog platform. I have created a web part in Visual Studio as a visual web part, so I have a user control. The user control is called New Dialog User Control. In my control, I have a simple hyperlink with an ID of link changer, and notice that its display style is set to none. I have a div called div edit site title, which also has its display style set to none, and that has a label and a button and a text box in it. And the button is hooked up with an on-click event to a method called changeTitle. Now we include a SharePoint script link, which is a SharePoint component, to sp.js, and that will allow us to work with the page loading events and so forth, but also with the client object model. So for example, we're going to interact with the web and its title with our control. Now notice as the script runs, we say to push in the initialize function into the load process of this page. So here we initialize and we start working with the client object model. We load the page and we call execute query async, and when that's complete, our callback function called onWebLoaded runs. And what we then do is make sure that the hyperlink is visible. So we don't want the user to see the hyperlink until we are ready to interact with the web object of the client object model. Notice we have this function called showTitleChanger, which is what the actual hyperlink calls. It performs a JavaScript action to show the additional hidden div, and that's our dialog in fact, so we make it visible on the page. We apply a block style, and then we build up a string called dialog really very simply. It consists of the HTML of our div and a width and a height. Then we can set our variable, which is called thisDialog, equal to the showModalDialog method of sp.ui.modal, and that exists on the page already via the sp.js file. Now we have a function called hideTitleChanger that will close the dialog, but we have our button that updates our site title as well by calling this client object model function. So it sets the title of the web to whatever is in the text box and calls update and execute query async. Now when that method is returned to us, because it's asynchronous, we will hide the title changer. We will call hideTitleChanger, which hides the dialog. So let's go and test this out. Remember, we are building this dialog as part of a visual web part. So I can go to a web part page, switch to edit mode and insert a web part just as you would for any other type of web part. In the custom category I have my site title changer, and that's my visual web part. Notice the dialog isn't visible, and in fact the link is only visible because our initialize code has already run. Remember, we had the callback event that said to show that. Now when I click it, we run our additional function, which is to show the HTML of the div in the dialog platform. So let's update the title of the site. And when we click the Update Site Title button, we again interact with the client object model and set the title property of the site. When that completes, our callback procedure fires, which hides the dialog. So notice how the intranet site now has a different title. We can go back and change it, and just to reiterate, when I click Update Site Title, we call execute query async with the object model, and when that's finished we hide the dialog.